In the heart of Boston, where the autumn leaves painted the streets in hues of amber and crimson, James Carter stepped out of his sleek black sedan. At 38, he was a man who carried the weight of his wealth with a practiced ease. His tailored navy suit, a stark contrast to the gritty reality of the city's underbelly. A white American, with sharp blue eyes and a jawline of determination, James had built an empire through tech innovations and strategic philanthropy. His sandy blonde hair was neatly combed, though a few strands rebelled in the crisp October breeze. Today, he was visiting Hope Haven, a community center for the homeless, tucked away in a corner of the city that rarely saw men like him. The center was a modest brick building, its faded sign barely legible under years of weathering. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and cleaning supplies, a testament to the staff's efforts to maintain dignity in a place stretched thin by need. James adjusted his tie, feeling the eyes of volunteers and residents alike, tracking his every move. He was used to scrutiny, but here it felt different. Less awe, more suspicion. Sophia Johnson stood at the reception desk, sorting through a stack of donation forms. An African-American woman of 30. Her presence was a quiet force, her dark eyes sharp with focus, and her braided hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her rich brown skin glowed under the fluorescent lights, though she carried the exhaustion of long hours in the slight slump of her shoulders. She wore a simple green sweater and jeans, practical yet polished, reflecting her commitment to the people she served. Sophia was the heart of Hope Haven, a social worker whose dedication had earned her the trust of everyone from the residents to the volunteers. James approached his polished shoes, clicking on the linoleum floor. "Good morning," he said, offering a smile that had closed million-dollar deals. "I'm James Carter. I'm here to meet with the director about a potential partnership." Sophia glanced up, her expression neutral but guarded. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice steady, with a hint of southern warmth, a remnant of her childhood in Georgia. "The director's out sick today. I'm Sophia Johnson, the program coordinator. I can give you the tour, but I'll warn you it's not a photo op kind of place." Her bluntness caught him off guard, but he nodded, intrigued. "Lead the way, Ms. Johnson." As they walked through the center, Sophia pointed out the sleeping quarters, the kitchen where volunteers prepared meals, and the small classroom where residents could learn basic skills. Her passion was evident in every word her hands animated as she described the programs she'd fought to keep alive. James listened intently, his usual boardroom detachment giving way to genuine curiosity. Something about Sophia, her fire and refusal to soften her edges, made him want to know more. She said this place runs on heart, pausing by a bulletin board covered in thank you notes from former residents. "But the heart doesn't pay the bills. We're barely scraping by." James saw an opportunity. What if I could help with that? My foundation is always looking for meaningful projects. Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly, her lips pressing into a thin line. "We've had saviors come through before, Mr. Carter. They make promises, take pictures, and leave when the cameras do. No offense, but billionaires don't have an excellent track record here." The jab stung, but James kept his composure. "I'm not here for headlines, Ms. Johnson. I want to understand what you need." She studied him, her gaze piercing. "What we need is stability. Funding that doesn't dry up when the next cause gets trendy. But you'll have to forgive me if I don't hold my breath." Their tour continued, the tension between them palpable. James admired her conviction, but her distrust was a wall he wasn't used to facing as they passed a group of residents playing cards in the standard room. One wiry and graying man called out to Sophia, "You telling this guy to keep our home open?" "Soph," she flashed a warm smile. "Doing my best, Marcus." James noted the exchange and how the residents lit up in her presence. He wanted to say something to bridge the gap, but Sophia's phone buzzed before he could. She glanced at it, her face tightening. problem?" James asked. "Budget meeting got moved up," she said curtly. "We're in the red again. If we don't find a way to cover the shortfall, Hope Haven might not make it to next spring." The weight of her words settled over them. James saw the strain in her eyes. Her shoulders squared as if bracing for a fight. "Let me come to the meeting," he said impulsively. "I can help." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but don't expect a warm welcome." The meeting was held in a cramped back office, the air thick with tension. The center's board, 3 overworked volunteers, and an accountant pored over spreadsheets that painted a grim picture. James sat quietly taking in the numbers, unpaid utilities, dwindling donations, and a lease payment looming like a guillotine. Sophia presented the situation calmly, which belied her frustration, her voice steady as she outlined stopgap measures. When she finished, James spoke. "I can cover the lease for the following year, no strings attached." The room fell silent. The accountant, a bespectacled woman named Claire, blinked. "That's generous, Mr. Carter. But we'd need to see a formal proposal." "Of course," James said. "I'll have my team draft one by tomorrow." Sophia's expression remained unreadable, but her eyes flicked to him, searching for a motive. After the meeting, as the others filed out, she lingered. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice low. "What's in it for you?" James met her gaze. "Maybe I want to do something real. Not everything's a transaction, Sophia." She didn't respond, but the way she held his stare told him she wasn't convinced. James tried to lighten the mood as they walked back to the main hall. "I was going to ask you to dinner to discuss this further, but I'm guessing you'd say no." "You'd guess right," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I don't mix business with pleasure, Mr. Carter. Especially not with someone who could buy this building and still have change for a yacht." He chuckled, undeterred. "Fair enough. But I'm not giving up." As he left the center, James felt a spark he hadn't had in years, a challenge to win Sophia's trust and prove that he could be more than the sum of his wealth. Back in her office, Sophia watched him drive away, her mind a tangle of hope and skepticism. She wanted to believe in his intentions, but experience had taught her that men like James Carter rarely stayed. That evening, Sophia stayed late, combing through the center's files for any grant opportunities. Her desk was a chaos of papers and empty coffee cups, her braids now loose from their bun. She was about to call it a night when an email popped up, a notice from the city. The land Hope Haven sat on was under review for rezoning. A developer had proposed a commercial complex, and the center's lease was at risk. Sophia's heart sank. She knew James's foundation had ties to real estate. Was his offer just a ploy to soften the blow? She closed her laptop, her distrust hardening. Tomorrow she'd confront him. Billionaires didn't just walk into places like Hope Haven without an agenda. The next day, James returned with a polished proposal, his white skin catching the morning light as he stepped into the center. He wore a less formal blazer today, a nod to the center's casual vibe, but his presence still drew stares. Sophia met him at the door, her brown skin glowing under the sun, though her expression was all business. "Mr. Carter," she said, holding up the rezoning notice. "Care to explain this?" James's brow furrowed as he scanned the document. "I had no idea," he said, his voice steady but surprised. "My foundation doesn't handle my real estate ventures. This must be one of my partners acting independently." Sophia crossed her arms. "Convenient. You show up with a check just as we're about to lose our home," he said. "I'm not your enemy." "Sophia," his blue eyes earnest. "Let me make some calls. I'll get to the bottom of this." She wanted to push back, to call out the coincidence, but something in his tone gave her pause. "Fine," she said. "But if you're playing games, I'll ensure everyone in Boston knows it." As James stepped outside to call his team, Sophia watched him, her mind racing. She didn't trust him yet, but she couldn't deny the lifeline he was offering. Hope Haven was her life's work. If James were sincere, she'd have to find a way to work with him, but she'd fight him with everything she had if he wasn't. The seeds of their unlikely partnership were planted, but the ground was rocky, and trust was a long way off. The morning sun filtered through the grimy windows of Hope Haven, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. Sophia Johnson stood in the community center's kitchen, overseeing a group of volunteers preparing breakfast for the residents. Her green sweater was rolled up at the sleeves, her hands busy sorting trays of donated pastries. Despite the chaos of the morning rush, her movements were precise, her focus unwavering. She was in her element among the clatter of pans and the chatter of those she served, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the rezoning notice and James Carter's too convenient offer. James arrived just as the breakfast line formed, his blazer swapped for a more casual jacket, though his polished demeanor still set him apart. He carried a sleek leather folder that screamed corporate boardrooms, and his presence drew curious glances from the residents. Sophia caught his eye and nodded toward her office, signaling him to follow. Inside the cramped room, papers were still scattered across her desk from the night before. She closed the door, shutting out the noise of the kitchen. So she began crossing her arms. "Did you make those calls?" James set the folder on her desk and opened it, revealing a neatly typed proposal. "I did, and I have something for you." He slid the document toward her. "This is a commitment of $1 million to keep Hope Haven operational for the next 3 years. It covers the lease utilities and expands your programs. No strings, no photo ops." Sophia's eyes scanned the pages, her skepticism a shield she wasn't ready to lower. The numbers were impressive too. "Impressive. This is a lot of money, Mr. Carter. People don't just hand out millions without wanting something in return." James leaned back in the chair, his posture relaxed, but his gaze steady. "I get it. You think I'm here to polish my image. But I told you, Sophia, this isn't about headlines. I see what you're doing here. It's worth saving." She wanted to believe him, but the rezoning notice gnawed at her. She pulled it from a drawer and placed it on the desk. "Then explain this again. You say you didn't know about the commercial project, but your name is tied to the developers. Carter Enterprises has a stake in it." James's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "I checked with my team. One of my subsidiaries is a minority investor in the project. I wasn't briefed on the details. It's not my day-to-day. I'm having my lawyers pull us out. That land is yours, Sophia. I'll make sure of it." His words were smooth, practiced, and Sophia's instincts screamed caution. "You expect me to take your word for it? I've seen too many promises fall apart." James leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "Then let me prove it. Come to my foundation's gala this weekend. It's a fundraiser for community projects across Boston. You'll see what I'm about, and we can discuss how to protect Hope Haven." Sophia hesitated. A gala meant his world glitz power, and people who saw her work as a feel-good story rather than a lifeline. But if it meant saving the center, she'd play along. "Fine," she said. "But I'm not there to sip champagne and smile for your donors. I'm there for Hope Haven." "Understood," James said, a faint smile breaking through. "I'll send a car for you Saturday, 7 o'clock. The gala was held in a glittering ballroom downtown, all chandeliers and polished marble. Sophia felt out of place in her simple black dress, her practicality clashing with the extravagance around her. In a tailored tuxedo, James moved through the crowd with ease, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. He spotted her near the entrance and made his way over, his smile genuine, despite the formal setting. "Glad you came," he said, offering her a glass of sparkling water. "You look like you're ready to take on the room." "I'm here to talk business," Sophia replied, ignoring the compliment. "What's the plan for the rezoning?" Before James could answer, a woman approached her presence, commanding attention. Laura Bennett, a former associate of James's, wore a sleek red gown and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "James, darling," she said, her tone dripping with familiarity. "And who's this?" James said. "Sophia Johnson, program coordinator at Hope Haven," his voice neutral. "Sophia, this is Laura Bennett, a former colleague." Laura's smile tightened. "Charmed. I've heard about your little shelter. Such a noble cause." Her words were polite, but the condescension was unmistakable. Sophia held her ground. "It's more than a cause. It's people's lives." Laura's eyes flicked to James, then back to Sophia. Of course, James always did have a soft spot for underdog projects. She excused herself, but not before whispering something to a nearby reporter. As the evening wore on, Sophia mingled reluctantly, focusing on pitching Hope Haven to potential donors. James stayed close, introducing her to key players, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Laura was watching them. During a quiet moment, James pulled her aside. "I'm sorry about Laura. She's complicated." "Complicated how?" Sophia asked, her tone sharp. James sighed. "We worked together years ago. She didn't take it well when I cut ties. Let's say she's not a fan of my new direction." Sophia wasn't satisfied, but before she could press further, a reporter approached, notepad in hand. "Ms. Johnson, is Carter Enterprises funding Hope Haven to offset their role in the rezoning controversy fair?" The question hit like a punch. Sophia's eyes snapped to James, who looked as blindsided as she felt. "No comment." She said, her voice tight. To James, she added, "You said you didn't know." "I didn't." He insisted. "Someone's stirring this up. I'll find out who." Sophia felt the weight of whispers and sidelong glances as the gala continued. By the time she left, her distrust had deepened, but so had her resolve. If James were playing a game, she'd beat him at it. And if he were sincere, he'd have to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Back at Hope Haven the next day, Sophia found an anonymous note slipped under her office door. "Ask Carter about the 2015 deal. He's not who he seems." Her heart raced as she read it, the puzzle pieces refusing to fit. James's offer was a lifeline, but the rezoning threat, and now this note suggested a deeper game. She'd go along with his plan, but she was done playing nice. The air in Sophia Johnson's office at Hope Haven was thick with the scent of old coffee and printer ink. Papers cluttered her desk, a chaotic map of budgets, grant applications, and the rezoning notice that had upended her week. She sat back in her creaky chair, the anonymous note from the gala clutched in her hand. "Ask Carter about the 2015 deal. He's not who he seems." The words gnawed at her, each syllable, a pebble in the wall of distrust she'd built around James Carter. She wanted to believe his $1 million pledge was genuine, but the timing of the rezoning threat, and now this cryptic warning, made her question everything. Boston hummed with morning traffic outside, but the mood was tense inside the community center. Volunteers moved quietly, their usual chatter subdued. Word of the rezoning had spread, and with it, whispers about James's involvement. Sophia tucked the note into her desk drawer, her jaw set. She'd confront him, but not without a plan. If James were hiding something, she'd find it. Her phone buzzed, a text from James. "Can we meet? I have updates on the rezoning." She stared at the screen, weighing her options. Ignoring him wasn't an option. Hope Haven's future hung in the balance. She typed back, "Noon, my office. Bring answers." James arrived promptly, his casual jacket contrasting with his polished suit at the gala. He carried a tablet and a determined look, as if he'd spent the morning preparing for battle. Sophia stood behind her desk, arms crossed, her green sweater slightly wrinkled from a sleepless night. The office felt smaller with him in it, his presence filling the space like a storm cloud. "Thanks for meeting me," James said, setting the tablet down. "I've got my team digging into the rezoning. It's a mess, but we're pulling our investment from the project." "I meant what I said. This land stays with Hope Haven." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "That's a start, but I got a note last night. Someone told me to ask you about a 2015 deal. Care to explain?" James's expression flickered surprise, then something darker, like a memory he'd rather forget. He recovered quickly, but not before Sophia caught it. 2015. He said, his voice steady. "That could mean a lot of things. I was closing deals left and right back then. Can I see the note?" "It's anonymous," she said, not budging. "No signature, no details. Just a warning that you're not who you seem." "So what happened in 2015? "James." He hesitated, his fingers tapping the edge of her desk. "Look, 2015 was a rough year. I was young and aggressive and built Carter Enterprises from the ground up. I made mistakes, deals that didn't pan out, partners I trusted who shouldn't have been. But nothing I did was malicious. If someone's digging up old dirt, they're trying to undermine me. And you." Sophia leaned forward, her voice low. "Undermine us, or just you? Because right now I'm the one whose center is on the chopping block." James met her gaze unflinching. "I get why you're wary. But I'm not your enemy, Sophia. Come to my office tomorrow. I'll show you everything. Financials, contracts, whatever you need to see. I'm playing straight." She wanted to push back to demand answers now, but his offer was a chance to dig deeper. "Fine," she said. "But if I find one lie, we're done." The next day, Sophia stepped into the glass and steel tower of Carter Enterprises, a world away from Hope Haven's worn linoleum. The receptionist ushered her to the top floor, where James's office overlooked Boston's skyline. He greeted her with a cautious smile, gesturing to a conference table covered in files and a laptop displaying spreadsheets. "Everything's here," he said. "My company's investments past and present. The rezoning project was a side deal through a subsidiary I don't directly oversee. I've already started the process to divest." Sophia scanned the documents, her years of navigating nonprofit budgets, giving her a sharp eye for discrepancies. The numbers checked out, but the anonymous note lingered in her mind. "And 2015, she pressed. James sighed, pulling up an old report. "There was a real estate deal that went south. A partner cut corners, and I didn't catch it in time. A small charity got caught in the fallout and lost funding when the project collapsed. I've spent years making up for it, but some people don't forgive." Sophia studied him, searching for a crack in his story. His openness was disarming, but she wasn't ready to trust. Who would send that note then? Someone with a grudge. "Probably," he said. "I've made enemies. Laura Bennett, for one. She's got a knack for stirring trouble." The mention of Laura sent a chill through Sophia. The woman's sharp smile at the gala had felt like a warning. Before she could respond, James's assistant knocked, holding a phone. "Mr. Carter, there's a call from the city planning office. They need you now." James excused himself, leaving Sophia with the files. She flipped through them, her unease growing. The 2015 deal was messy, but nothing tied it directly to Hope Haven. As she waited, her phone pinged with a news alert. Billionaire James Carter's charity pledge. Questioned amid rezoning scandal. The article cited an unnamed source, claiming James's donation was a PR stunt to mask his role in the commercial project. Sophia's stomach churned. She forwarded the article to James, adding a single word. "Explain." He returned minutes later, his face grim as he read her message. "This is nonsense," he said. "Someone's leaking lies to the press. I'll have my team trace it." "Trace it fast," Sophia snapped. "Because right now, it looks like you're playing me." The article spread like wildfire. By evening, Hope Haven was buzzing with tension. Volunteers whispered in corners, and residents asked Sophia if they'd lose their home. She reassured them, her voice steady, despite the storm inside her. She hesitated when James called, offering to send his PR team to manage the fallout. Accepting help felt like handing him control, but the center's reputation was at stake. "Fine," she said over the phone. "But they work under me. This is my fight." "Deal," James replied. "And Sophia, I'm not giving up on this. Or you." His words lingered as she hung up, a mix of frustration and curiosity stirring. She didn't trust him entirely, but his persistence was starting to chip away at her defenses. That night she stayed late drafting a statement to counter the article. The anonymous note, the rezoning the media hit, it all felt coordinated. Someone wanted Hope Haven to fail, and James was either their target or their tool. The next morning, a stranger approached Sophia outside the center. He was wiry, nervous, and claimed to be a former Carter Enterprises employee. "You're Sophia, right?" he said, glancing around. "I sent the note. Check the 2015 deal. Carter buried a scandal to save his name. He'll do it again." Before she could ask more, he slipped into the crowd. Sophia's heart raced. She needed answers, and James's open book act wasn't enough. She'd dig into 2015 herself, even if it meant crossing lines. Hope Haven was worth it. The fallout from the news article hit Hope Haven like a tidal wave. By midweek, Sophia Johnson was fielding calls from donors pulling their support, their voices heavy with doubt. Volunteers, once a tight-knit crew, now whispered behind her back, questioning her judgment in aligning with James Carter. The community center's standard room, usually alive with laughter, felt like a held breath, every resident waiting for the axe to fall. Sophia moved through it all with a calm. She didn't feel her green sweater now, a uniform of resilience, as she reassured everyone that Hope Haven would survive. She taped the anonymous note to her desk in her office, a constant reminder to stay sharp. The former employee's words, "Carter buried a scandal," echoed in her mind. She'd spent the night scouring online archives, piecing together what she could about 2015. The charity James mentioned had been a small literacy program, but it went bankrupt when a Carter Enterprises deal collapsed. Details were scarce, but the pattern was familiar. Influential people skating free, while others paid the price. Still, nothing directly implicated James in malice. She needed more. James arrived at Hope Haven that afternoon, flanked by two PR specialists in crisp suits. He looked tired, his usual polish dulled by sleeplessness. "Sophia," he said, his voice low, "my team's here to help. They've drafted a press release and we're tracking the leak. Laura Bennett's behind it." Sophia nodded to the specialists who set up laptops in the corner. "They answer to me," she reminded him, her tone firm. "And I'm not signing off on anything until I know what's true," Fair James said. He handed her a USB drive. "This has every document from the 2015 deal, contracts, emails, audits. I'm an open book." She took the drive, her fingers brushing his for a moment. His earnestness was disarming, but she pushed the feeling aside. "I'll look at it. But if the press comes for us again, we're done playing defense." The PR team worked fast, crafting a statement, emphasizing Hope Haven's mission and James's commitment to saving it. Sophia edited heavily, stripping away corporate jargon to keep her voice at the center. They released it to local outlets by evening, but the damage was done. Social media buzzed with accusations, some calling James a fraud, others questioning Sophia's integrity for accepting his help. At the center, the mood grew heavier. Claire, the accountant, pulled Sophia aside. "People are talking," she said. "They think you're too close to Carter. It's making us look weak." Sophia's chest tightened. "I'm doing this for the center, Claire. If we don't take his money, we're done." "I know," Claire said, softening. "Just be careful. Not everyone's rooting for you. That night, James texted, "Can I help with anything else? I know this is rough." Sophia stared at the message torn. She didn't want to rely on him, but isolation was a luxury she couldn't afford. She replied, "Come by tomorrow. We're serving meals. See what we're fighting for." The next morning, James arrived at Hope Haven in jeans and a plain shirt, a far cry from his usual attire. The kitchen was a flurry of activity volunteers chopping vegetables and stirring pots of soup. Sophia handed him an apron, her expression unreadable. "You're on serving duty," she said. "No special treatment." He nodded, tying the apron with a clumsy knot. James seemed to shed his corporate armor as they worked side by side ladling soup for a line of residents. He listened to their stories, a veteran who'd lost his home, a mother starting over, his face softening with each one. Sophia watched him, her guard still up but wavering. During a lull, they sat at a folding table sharing a thermos of coffee. James stared into his cup, his voice quiet. "I was homeless for a year as a kid. My mom and I lived in shelters, cars wherever we could. I built all this." He gestured vaguely, meaning his empire, never to feel helpless again. "But people look at me now and see a suit, not a person." Sophia's breath caught. His vulnerability was unexpected, a crack in the facade she'd assumed was all there was. "Why tell me this now?" she asked. "Because you think I'm here for clout," he said. "I'm not. You are fighting for these people, reminding me why I started giving back. I just don't want to be seen as the guy who takes more than he gives." For the first time, Sophia saw the man behind the wealth, not a savior or villain, but someone wrestling with his own ghosts. She didn't trust him entirely, but felt a shift, a willingness to listen. The moment was cut short by another news alert: Carter's past haunts, Hope Haven deal. This time, the article mentioned the 2015 charity collapse, quoting an unnamed source who claimed James had deliberately shifted funds to save his company's reputation. Sophia's phone buzzed with texts from volunteers, some accusing her of selling out. She showed James the article, her voice cold. "This is getting worse. If Laura's behind it, you need to stop her." James's face hardened. "I'm meeting with my lawyers tomorrow. We'll sue for defamation if we can prove it's her." Sophia shook her head. "Lawsuits won't fix this. People are losing faith in us. In me." "Then let me help," he said. "Not just with money. I'll stand with you publicly and take the heat." She studied him, weighing his words against the USB drive in her pocket and the note on her desk. He offered more than she'd expected, but trust was still a leap she wasn't ready to take. "All right," she said finally. "But we do this my way. No spin, no games, just the truth." Sophia opened her laptop as James left, plugging in the USB drive. The 2015 files were dense contracts, emails, and financial reports. She'd read every word, cross-reference every claim. If James were hiding something, she'd find it. And if he were telling the truth, she'd have to decide what that meant for Hope Haven and her. The early morning light filtered through the smudged windows of Hope Haven, casting a soft glow over the community center's kitchen. Sophia Johnson stood at the counter, her green sweater sleeves rolled up as she organized trays of donated bread and fruit for the day's meal service. The air smelled of brewing coffee and fresh dough, a comforting routine amidst the storm of doubt swirling around her. The latest news article accusing James Carter of using Hope Haven as a PR stunt had left the staff divided and the residents uneasy. Sophia's inbox was flooded with donor questions, and the anonymous note, "Ask Carter about the 2015 deal," still sat taped to her desk, a silent challenge. James arrived just as the breakfast rush began, his usual polished look replaced by a plain gray hoodie and jeans. He carried a box of pastries from a local bakery, a small gesture that drew curious glances from volunteers. Sophia raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, pointing him toward the serving line. She said, "You're on fruit duty today," handing him a pair of gloves. "Don't slow us down." He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Wouldn't dream of it. The morning unfolded in a rhythm of clinking trays and murmured thanks. James moved with surprising ease, slicing apples and passing out oranges, his interactions with the residents genuine, if a bit awkward. Sophia watched him from the corner of her eye, noting how he listened to a woman named Rosa talk about her job search. His head tilted with quiet attention. It was a side of him she hadn't expected. Not the billionaire, but a man trying to fit into her world. As the line dwindled, Sophia called a break. She and James sat at a folding table in the corner, sharing a thermos of coffee. The room buzzed with volunteers cleaning up, but it was just them for a moment. Sophia sipped her coffee, her guard still up, but softened by exhaustion. "You didn't have to come today," she said. "Your PR team's already spinning the story." James set his cup down, his fingers tracing the rim. "I'm not here for PR. I meant what I said. I want to help. Not just with money, but here, where it matters." She studied him, searching for the catch. The USB drive of 2015 files was still on her desk. Half read its contents, dense, but not incriminating yet. "Why does this matter to you?" she asked. "You could write a check and walk away. Why get your hands dirty?" He leaned back, his gaze distant. "My mom and I didn't always have a place to sleep when I was a kid. Shelters like this were our lifeline, but people looked at us like we were nothing. I built everything I have to escape that feeling. But sometimes..." He paused, his voice low. "Sometimes, I'm scared they're right, that I'm just a fraud in a nice suit." The confession hung between them, raw and unguarded. Sophia's breath caught her own memories, stirring nights spent worrying about her family, the weight of being the one who had to make it. She'd always seen James as untouchable, but now she glimpsed the cracks beneath his confidence. She admitted, "You're not the only one," who scared, her voice softer than she intended. "I've poured everything into this place. If it fails, I don't know who I am." James met her eyes, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Then let's make sure it doesn't fail." Sophia felt a shift for the first time. Not trust, not yet, but a willingness to see him as more than a headline. They returned to the serving line, working in quiet sync, their shoulders brushing as they passed trays. The residents noticed their smiles were warmer, as if sensing a bridge forming. That afternoon, Sophia dove back into the 2015 files, her laptop screen a maze of contracts and emails. The charity collapse James had mentioned was real, a small literacy program that folded when a real estate deal tanked. His company had been a partner, but the blame seemed to fall on a subcontractor who'd mismanaged funds. James's name appeared in emails, but only peripherally, signing off on decisions without detail. It was sloppy, not sinister, but the optics were bad. She wondered if the anonymous note was just a grudge, someone twisting a mistake into a scandal. Her phone buzzed with a text from Claire, the accountant, reporters outside. "Want me to handle it?" Sophia sighed, rubbing her temples. The media storm wasn't letting up. She texted back, "I've got it. Keep everyone calm." Outside, a small cluster of reporters waited, cameras ready. Sophia squared her shoulders, stepping into the cold October air. "Hope Haven is still here. Still serving," she said, her voice steady. "We're working with James Carter to secure our future and won't be distracted by rumors." The questions came fast about James, the rezoning, the 2015 deal. She deflected with practiced calm, but each one chipped away at her resolve. As she turned to go back inside, a reporter called out, "Is Carter buying your loyalty, Ms. Johnson?" She froze, then turned, her eyes blazing. "Nobody buys me. This is about the people we serve. Write that down." Back in her office, she found James waiting, his expression grim. "I saw the news vans," he said. "I'm sorry you're taking the heat for this. It's not just about me," she snapped, then softened. But thanks for being here today. It helped. He nodded, hesitating before speaking. There's a community event tomorrow night. Small, local, no press. Come with me. Let's show people we're in this together. Sophia considered it. Another public appearance risked more scrutiny, but staying silent wasn't an option. All right, she said. But we keep it real. No spin. As James left, Sophia felt the day's weight settle over her. The files, the note, and the reporters were all a puzzle she couldn't solve yet. But for the first time, she wondered if James might be an ally, not just a liability. The community event was held in a church basement, a modest gathering of local leaders and residents. Sophia wore a simple navy dress, her presence commanding despite the casual setting. James stood beside her, introducing her to organizers who'd heard of Hope Haven's plight. They spoke as a team, outlining plans to expand the center's programs if the funding came through. The crowd was receptive, their applause a small victory. But as they stepped outside afterward, a man approached, his face half hidden by a hood. "You're digging into 2015, aren't you?" he said, his voice low. "Keep going. Carter's not clean." Before Sophia could respond, he vanished into the night. James, who'd been a step behind, caught up. "Who was that?" "I don't know," she said, her heart racing. But he knew about the note. James's face darkened. "This is getting out of hand. I'm doubling down on finding who's behind this." Sophia nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. The man's words echoed the note, and the pieces started forming a picture, one she wasn't sure she wanted to see. The chill of late October settled over Boston, the city's streets lined with fallen leaves and the promise of winter. Inside, Hope Haven. Sophia Johnson was a whirlwind of focus, her desk a fortress of papers and coffee cups. The anonymous note and the stranger's warning had lit a fire under her. She'd spent nights cross-referencing the 2015 files, chasing leads on the rezoning threat, and dodging reporters who lingered outside the center like vultures. Thanks to the press release, the media storm had quieted slightly, but the damage lingered. Donors were hesitant, and volunteers were on edge. Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from James. "Found something on the leak. Can we meet?" She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. Every interaction with James pulled her deeper into his world, and she wasn't sure she could afford the cost. But Hope Haven's future was at stake, so she replied, "My office, 2 p.m. James arrived with a folder and a grim expression, his casual jacket swapped for a sharper blazer, as if bracing for a fight. "I had my team dig into the media hits," he said, sitting across from her. The articles trace back to a PR firm tied to Laura Bennett. She's been feeding them dirt, some true, some twisted. Sophia's jaw tightened at Laura's name. The woman's sharp smile from the gala was burned into her memory, a warning she hadn't heeded soon enough. "What's her endgame?" she asked. "Why target Hope Haven?" "It's not just you," James said. "It's me. Laura and I parted ways years ago, after a deal went bad. She's got a vendetta, and she's using the rezoning and the 2015 story to hit me where it hurts." Sophia leaned back, processing. "So, we're collateral damage in your old feud?" "Not precisely," James said. "Laura knows Hope Haven matters to me. She's trying to make me look like a fraud and scare you off." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "She's doing a good job. I've got volunteers quitting and donors pulling out. If she's behind this, what's your plan?" James slid the folder across the desk. Proof. Emails between Laura and the PR firm, plus records of her pushing the rezoning through a shell company. "I'm taking it to my lawyers. We can sue for defamation and block the land deal." Sophia flipped through the pages, her skepticism warring with relief. The evidence was solid: dates, names, payments. But it didn't explain the anonymous note or the stranger's warning. "This is a start," she said. "But I'm not waiting for your lawyers. I'm digging into Laura myself." James frowned. "Be careful. She's not above playing dirty." I can handle dirty, Sophia said, her voice steel. This is my fight too. Sophia sat at her laptop that evening scouring public records and old news articles. Laura Bennett was a ghost in the data. Her name was tied to high-profile real estate deals, but there was little else. A few clicks led to a blog post from a disgruntled former employee hinting at Laura's ruthless tactics, bribes, leaks, sabotage. It wasn't proof, but it was a thread to pull. Sophia jotted down names and companies, building a map of Laura's network. The next day, she visited a local library using their public computers to avoid being traced. She cross-referenced Laura's shell company with the rezoning proposal, finding a connection to a city council member with a history of questionable votes. It was enough to raise red flags, but not enough to act on. As she left, her phone pinged with a news alert. Hope Haven faces eviction as Carter's past resurfaces. The article, sourced to an insider, claimed James had known about the rezoning and was using his donation to buy Sophia's silence. Fury surged through her. She called James, her voice tight. Another article. Laura's escalating. We need to hit back now. I'm on it, James said. Meet me at my office. We'll go public with the evidence. At Carter Enterprises, the atmosphere was tense. James's team had compiled a dossier on Laura's tactics, including screenshots of her communications with the PR firm. Sophia sat at the conference table, her navy jacket contrasting with the glass and steel room. This is good, she said, scanning the files. But we need more than a lawsuit. We need people to see Laura for who she is. James nodded. I'm hosting a press conference tomorrow. Come with me. We'll lay it all out. Laura's campaign, the rezoning, everything. Let's take control of the story. Sophia hesitated. Standing with James publicly would tie her to him for better or worse. But staying silent wasn't an option. All right, she said. But we tell the truth, no polish. People need to know what's at stake. As she left, her phone buzzed with an anonymous text. Check Laura's 2018 deal in Chicago. She's done this before. Sophia's pulse quickened. The message was unsigned, but it echoed the stranger's warning. She forwarded it to James, adding, "Find this fast." The press conference was held in a community center downtown, a neutral ground that felt less like James's world and more like hers. Sophia stood beside him, her posture rigid as cameras flashed. James first outlined Laura's smear campaign, presenting the evidence like a prosecutor. Sophia followed, her voice steady but fierce, detailing Hope Haven's mission and the threat it faced. This isn't about one man's money, she said. It's about a community that deserves to survive. The questions were brutal about James's past, Sophia's motives, the 2015 deal. They answered as a team, their chemistry undeniable despite the tension. As they stepped off the stage, Sophia felt a flicker of hope. They'd struck a blow, but Laura wasn't done. Sophia found another anonymous note that night, slipped under her office door. You're close. Look at Laura's offshore accounts. Her heart raced. The notes, the stranger, and the texts connected, and Laura was at the center. She called James, her voice urgent. We need to talk. This just got bigger. As they planned their next move, Sophia realized she was starting to rely on James, his resources, and resolve. It was a dangerous shift she wasn't sure she was ready for. But with Laura closing in, they had no choice but to fight together. The late October wind whipped through Boston, rattling the windows of Hope Haven's community center. Sophia Johnson sat in her cluttered office, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across stacks of papers and empty coffee cups. The anonymous note. Look at Laura's offshore accounts, lay taped to her desk. Its cryptic warning fueling her late-night searches. The media storm had quieted since the press conference, but the damage lingered. Donors hesitated, volunteers whispered, and residents asked daily if the center would survive. Sophia's navy jacket hung on her chair, a silent reminder of the fight she'd taken public alongside James Carter. James had been true to his word, delivering evidence of Laura Bennett's smear campaign, a web of emails and payments linking her to the rezoning push and the damaging articles. But the latest note suggested something bigger, and Sophia wasn't waiting for answers to fall into her lap. She'd spent hours digging into Laura's past, chasing leads on the Chicago deal mentioned in the anonymous text. Public records showed Laura's involvement in a 2018 real estate project that displaced a community center with whispers of offshore accounts hiding profits. It was a pattern, and Hope Haven was her latest target. James arrived at noon, his blazer traded for a sweater, his face etched with determination. He carried a thick folder, its edges worn from travel. He said, "My lawyers have enough to file against Laura," setting it on Sophia's desk. "Defamation, interference, and fraud. We're going after her and the shell company pushing the rezoning." Sophia flipped through the documents, legal briefs, financial records, and a draft complaint. "This is solid," she said, her voice steady but cautious. "But lawsuits take time, and Hope Haven's running out of it. The city's voting on the rezoning next week." "I know," James said. "I'm announcing a new initiative today, $5 million for homeless support programs across Boston, starting with Hope Haven. It's a show of commitment, putting pressure on the city to back off." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Another big gesture. People already think you're buying goodwill." James leaned forward, his voice low. "This isn't about optics. It's about giving you the leverage to fight. You're the face of this, Sophia. I'm just the wallet." Her instinct was to push back, to question his motives, but his words rang true. The press conference had shown they could work as a team, and his openness about his past had chipped away at her distrust. "All right," she said, "but I'm leading the announcement. This is about the people we serve, not your checkbook." "Deal," James said, a faint smile breaking through. "There's a community rally tonight. We can announce it there." The rally was held in a park near Hope Haven, a modest gathering of residents, activists, and local leaders under a canopy of autumn leaves. Sophia stood at a makeshift podium, her voice carrying over the crowd as she spoke about the center's mission: shelter, dignity, a second chance. James stood beside her, letting her take the lead. When she introduced the $5 million initiative, the crowd erupted in cheers. But Sophia focused on the city council members in attendance, their expressions unreadable. As James stepped up to speak, a heckler shouted, "What's the catch, Carter?" The crowd murmured, and Sophia tensed, but James calmly handled it. "No catch," he said. "This is about keeping places like Hope Haven alive. Ask Ms. Johnson, she's calling the shots." The crowd settled, but Sophia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at it, a text from an unknown number: "Laura's meeting with city officials tomorrow." "Stop her!" Her pulse quickened. She showed James the text as they left the stage, her voice low. "This is getting dangerous. Whoever's sending these knows too much." James's jaw tightened. "I'll have my team track the number. But we need to move fast. If Laura's lobbying the council, she's not slowing down." The next day, Sophia met with a contact at City Hall, a clerk who owed her a favor. Over coffee in a crowded cafe, the clerk confirmed Laura had been seen with a council member tied to the rezoning vote. "She's pushing hard," the clerk said. "Word is, she's got dirt on half the council. They're scared to cross her." Sophia's mind raced. Laura wasn't just a rival, but a predator, using power and secrets to bend the city to her will. Back at Hope Haven, Sophia shared the intel with James, who was poring over legal filings. "We need to go public with her offshore accounts," she said. "If we can prove she's hiding money, it'll discredit her." James nodded. "My team's working on it. We've got a lead on a bank in the Caymans, but it's tricky. Those accounts are locked tight. We need hard evidence." Sophia's thoughts turned to the anonymous sender. Whoever they were, They had access to information she didn't. She drafted a reply to the latest text. "Who are you? Please help us stop her." No response came, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As Sophia locked up the center that evening, her phone buzzed with another anonymous message. "Check your mailbox." Heart pounding, she found a plain envelope in Hope Haven's mailbox containing a single page, a bank statement from a Cayman Islands account in Laura's name, showing transfers tied to the rezoning developer. It was damning, but using it meant trusting an unknown source. She called James, her voice urgent. "We've got something. Meet me now." At a quiet diner, they pored over the statement. James's eyes lit up. "This is it," he said. "We can tie Laura to the rezoning and the smear campaign. My lawyers will use this to strengthen the lawsuit." Sophia hesitated. "But who sent it?" "This feels like a setup." "Maybe," James said. "But it's all we've got. We go to the press with this, and Laura's done." Sophia agreed, but her unease grew. The rally had bought them time, but Laura was ahead, and the anonymous sender was an unpredictable wild card. As they planned their next move, Sophia realized she was starting to rely on James, his resources and steadiness. It was a shift she hadn't expected, and it scared her as much as Laura's threats. The Boston skyline glittered against the night, but inside Hope Haven, the air was tense. Sophia Johnson sat at her desk, the Cayman Islands bank statement before her. The numbers were stark millions funneled through Laura Bennett's offshore account, tied to the developer pushing the rezoning of Hope Haven's land. It was the break they needed, but the anonymous sender's involvement made Sophia's skin crawl. Who was feeding her this information, and why? The note, the texts, the stranger at the rally were pieces of a puzzle she couldn't yet solve. James Carter arrived at the center just after dusk, his sweater rumpled from a day of meetings with lawyers. He carried a laptop and a stack of printouts, his expression a mix of resolve and exhaustion. He said, "We've got the press ready to run the story setting up at Sophia's desk, the bank statement plus Laura's emails to the PR firm. It's enough to bury her." Sophia nodded, her navy jacket draped over her chair as she leaned over the documents. "We need to be careful," she said. "If this backfires, it's not just you taking the hit." Hope Haven's already on shaky ground. James met her gaze, his voice steady. "I know. That's why we're doing this together. You call the shots on how we frame it." Her instinct was to keep him at arm's length, but his willingness to defer to her was disarming. They drafted a press release careful to focus on Laura's actions without sensationalizing Hope Haven's role. Their hands brushed over the keyboard as they worked, a fleeting moment that sent a jolt through Sophia. She pulled back, focusing on the screen, but the air between them had shifted. The press release hit the next morning, and Boston's news cycle exploded. Headlines screamed of Laura's offshore accounts and her campaign to discredit James and Hope Haven. Social media buzzed with outrage, and the city council postponed the rezoning vote, citing new information. Sophia fielded calls from reporters, her voice calm but firm as she defended the center's mission. James's team handled the legal front, filing an expanded lawsuit against Laura for fraud and extortion. But the victory was short-lived. Sophia found another anonymous note taped to her office door that afternoon. "You're over your head. Watch your back." Her heart raced as she scanned the empty hallway. She called James, who arrived within the hour, his face grim as he read the note. "This isn't just Laura anymore," he said. "Someone else is pulling strings." Sophia's mind flashed to the stranger at the rally, the texts, the bank statement. "We need to find out who's sending these," she said. "They know too much." James nodded. "I've got a private investigator looking into the texts. But until we know more, you need to be careful." Sophia bristled. "I'm not hiding. This is my fight." "I know," James said, softer now, "but you're not alone in it. That night, Sophia stayed late at Hope Haven, combing through public records on Laura's Chicago deal. She found a pattern: displaced nonprofits, hidden funds, and a trail of silenced critics. As she cross-referenced names, a noise outside her office startled her, a crash like glass breaking. She grabbed her phone, dialing James as she crept toward the door. "Someone's here," she whispered when he answered. "I heard something." "Stay put," James said. "I'm 5 minutes away." Sophia's pulse pounded as she peered into the darkened hallway. The center was empty, the residents in their bunks, the volunteers gone. Another crash came from the kitchen, followed by footsteps. She grabbed a heavy stapler, her only weapon, from her desk and opened the door. The kitchen was a mess. Broken dishes scattered across the floor, a window smashed. A figure in a dark hoodie was rifling through a cabinet, oblivious to her presence. "Hey, Sophia!" shouted, her voice sharper than she felt. The figure spun, face obscured, and bolted for the broken window. Sophia gave chase, her adrenaline spiking, but a hand grabbed her arm, pulling her back. It was James, his eyes wide with alarm. "Don't," he said. "It's not safe." The figure vanished into the night, leaving Sophia angry and afraid. James checked the window, pulled her into the office, and locked the door. "You okay?" he asked, his hands on her shoulders. She nodded, catching her breath. They were looking for something. This wasn't random. James's face hardened. "Laura's desperate. She's sending people to scare you." Sophia's eyes met his, and the walls between them crumbled at that moment. His concern, his presence. It wasn't just an obligation. She felt it, and so did he. Without thinking, she stepped closer, her hand resting on his arm. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. James's hand lingered on her shoulder, his gaze softening. "I'm not letting anything happen to you, Sophia." The air crackled, the danger outside sharpening the moment. Neither moved, caught in the gravity of their shared fight. Sophia's heart raced, not from fear now, but from something more profound, a connection she hadn't expected. She stepped back, breaking the moment. "We need to call the police," she said, her voice steady despite the warmth in her chest. As they waited for the authorities, James stayed close, his presence a quiet anchor. The police took statements, dusted for prints, and promised to investigate. But Sophia knew the real fight was far from over. Laura was cornered, and cornered predators were dangerous. But as she glanced at James, she realized she wasn't facing this alone. For better or worse, they were in it together, and that changed everything. The air in Hope Haven's office was thick with the scent of stale coffee and damp paper, the aftermath of the previous night's break-in still lingering. Sophia Johnson sat at her cluttered desk, her navy jacket slung over the chair, her fingers tracing the edges of the latest anonymous note. "You're over your head. Watch your back." The broken glass in the kitchen had been swept up, the window boarded, but the violation clung to the walls. Sophia's laptop glowed with open tabs, public records, news archives, and the Cayman Islands bank statement, tying Laura Bennett to the rezoning scheme. The police had found no prints, no leads, but Sophia wasn't waiting for them to solve this. She was done being a target. James Carter arrived just after sunrise. His sweater rumpled, his eyes shadowed from a sleepless night. He carried a thermos of coffee and a stack of legal documents, his presence a quiet anchor in the chaos. "The police report's a dead end," he said, setting the thermos on her desk. "But my investigator tracked the anonymous texts to a burner phone. No name, but it's linked to a coffee shop near Laura's office." Sophia's jaw tightened. She's covering her tracks, but she's not invisible. That bank statement is our best shot. We need to verify it before we go public again. James nodded, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "My team's working on it, but there's something else." He hesitated, his fingers tightening around his mug. You asked about 2015. I owe you the whole story. Sophia leaned back, her guard up, but curious. The anonymous notes had pointed to 2015, and while the files James shared showed a messy but not malicious deal, she sensed he was holding something back. I'm listening, she said, her voice steady. James took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the desk. Back then, I built Carter Enterprises, chasing every deal I could. I partnered with a developer on a real estate project, a strip mall. It was supposed to fund a small charity, a literacy program for low-income kids. I trusted the developer to handle the details, but they cut corners and siphoned funds. When the project tanked, the charity lost everything. I didn't know until it was too late. Sophia's eyes narrowed. You signed off on the deal. How did you miss that? I was careless, he admitted, his voice raw. I was so focused on the big picture growth profits that I didn't dig into the numbers. When it fell apart, I tried to fix it, paid out of pocket to cover some of the charity's losses. But the damage was done. They folded, and I've carried that guilt ever since. The confession hung between them, heavy and unpolished. Sophia studied him, searching for a lie, but his eyes held only regret. Why didn't you tell me this up front? She asked. You let me think you were just sloppy. James met her gaze. Because I was ashamed. I built my name on being the guy who gets it right, but that mistake cost people their hope. I didn't want you to see me as just another suit who screws up and walks away. Sophia's chest tightened. His words echoed her fears, failing the people who depended on her, losing Hope Haven to forces she couldn't control. I get it, she said finally. But no more secrets, James. If we're doing this, I need the truth, all of it. He nodded, a flicker of relief in his expression. You have my word. From now on, complete transparency. She held his stare, weighing his promise. Trust was still a leap, but his vulnerability had cracked her defenses. All right, she said. Let's focus on Laura. If we can prove the bank statement, we can end this. That afternoon, Sophia met with a contact from a local nonprofit network, a tech-savvy volunteer who'd helped her track down records before. She shared the bank statement over coffee in a crowded downtown cafe, keeping Laura's name out of it. Can you verify this? She asked, sliding a redacted copy across the table. The volunteer, a wiry man named Eli, scanned the document. Offshore accounts are tricky, but I have a friend specializing in financial forensics. Please give me a couple of days. Sophia nodded, her mind racing. If the statement held up, it would tie Laura to illegal funds and sink her credibility. But the anonymous sender worried her. Why help, and at what cost? Back at Hope Haven, she found James waiting, his laptop open to a draft press release. He said, we're ready to go public once we confirm the account. But we need to be strategic. Laura's got friends in high places. Sophia's phone buzzed, a text from the anonymous number. Laura's meeting the developer tonight. 8 p.m., Harborview Hotel. Her pulse quickened. She showed James, who frowned. This feels like a trap. Maybe, Sophia said. But if we can catch her in the act, it's over. Against James's protests, Sophia decided to go. I'm not sitting this out, she said. You can come or stay, but I'm done waiting. The Harborview Hotel was a sleek, glass-fronted building overlooking the waterfront. Sophia and James arrived separately, blending into the lobby's crowd. She wore a dark coat, her hair tucked under a scarf, while James kept his head down his hoodie, a stark contrast to the hotel's polished guests. They found a corner table in the bar, eyes on the entrance. At 8:05, Laura swept in her red dress, a bold statement. She met a man in a suit. Sophia recognized him from City Hall photos, and he was a developer tied to the rezoning. They spoke in hushed tones, unaware of the phone Sophia held discreetly recording audio. The conversation was muffled, but words like payment and council vote cut through. It wasn't airtight evidence, but it was a start. As Laura stood to leave, her eyes scanned the room, locking onto Sophia for a split second. Sophia's heart stopped, but Laura moved on, oblivious. James grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We need to go," he whispered. "Now." Outside, the cold air hit them like a slap. Sophia's hands shook as she saved the recording. "We've got her," she said, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline. James's face was grim. "Not yet. She saw you." This just got personal. Back at Hope Haven, they listened to the recording, picking out fragments of Laura's plan: bribes, pressure on the council, a timeline to push the rezoning through. It bolsters their lawsuit, but Sophia's thoughts drifted to James's confession. His mistake in 2015 wasn't malicious, but it had cost people their hope, just like Laura's scheme threatened to do now. She looked at him, working across from her, his focus unwavering. "You meant it, didn't you?" she said. "About making things right." He looked up, surprised, every word. "I'm not that guy anymore, Sophia." She nodded, a weightlifter. "Then we do this together, no more secrets." As they finalized the press release, Sophia felt a shift, not just in their fight, but in her. James wasn't just a partner in this battle. He was someone she could imagine standing beside, flaws and all. It was a dangerous thought, but for the first time, she didn't push it away. The morning sun barely pierced the gray clouds over Boston, casting a muted glow over Hope Haven's brick facade. Sophia Johnson stood outside, her navy jacket zipped against the chill, watching volunteers unload a delivery of canned goods. The center was a hive of activity, but the threat of rezoning hung like a storm cloud. The anonymous texts, the bank statement, and the hotel recording were weapons in her fight against Laura Bennett. But the battle was far from won. Sophia's phone buzzed with a news alert. Carter's $5 million pledge under scrutiny as rezoning vote looms. She clenched her jaw, pocketing the phone. The city council's vote was days away, and Laura's influence was still a shadow over them. James Carter arrived mid-morning, his sweater swapped for a crisp blazer, his face set with purpose. He carried a tablet and a legal pad, his team's latest findings on Laura's offshore accounts. "We've got confirmation," he said, joining Sophia in her office. "The bank statement's legit. Transfers match payments to the rezoning developer. My lawyers are adding it to the lawsuit." Sophia scanned the tablet, her heart racing. "This could end her," she said. "But we need to move fast. The council's vote is on Tuesday." James nodded. "There's more. My investigator found a paper trail linking Laura to the break-in. She hired a low-level thug through a middleman. The police are following up." Sophia's eyes widened. "She's desperate. That's why the notes and texts, someone's leaking her. Move to us." "Exactly," James said. "But we can't rely on an anonymous source forever. We need to control this." Sophia leaned back, her mind churning. The evidence was mounting, but public opinion was still split. Hope Haven needed a win, something to rally the community and sway the council. "We need a big move," she said. "Something that shows we're not just fighting Laura, but building something better." James hesitated, then spoke. "I've been thinking about that. Carter Enterprises is tied to a commercial project in South Boston. Big money, big profits. But it's displacing a community garden. If I pull out, it sends a signal. I'm serious about places like Hope Haven. It'll cost me, but it protects your land." Sophia stared at him, the weight of his offer sinking in. "You'd give up a deal like that? For us?" "For you," he said, his voice soft but firm. "And for what this place means. I told you I'm not that guy from 2015. Let me prove it." The gesture was huge, bigger than his $5 million pledge. It was a sacrifice not just of money, but of the image he'd built. Sophia's defenses wavered, her heart caught between caution and something warmer. "All right," she said. "Please do it. But we announce it together. This is our fight." That afternoon, James's team drafted a statement announcing his withdrawal from the South Boston project, framing it as a commitment to community-driven development. Sophia insisted on adding Hope Haven's vision, a network of support centers across Boston, starting with their own. They scheduled a press event the next day, a public stand to counter Laura's narrative. As they worked, Sophia invited James to her apartment for dinner, a rare moment of pause. Her place was small, cozy, filled with books and photos of her family. She cooked a simple pasta dish, the kind her mother used to make, and they sat at her tiny kitchen table, the tension of the past weeks easing. "This is nice," James said, twirling spaghetti on his fork. "No reporters, no lawsuits, just us." Sophia smiled, her guard lowering. "Please don't get used to it. We've got a war to win." He laughed, then grew serious. "I know, but I need to ask, why do you fight so hard for Hope Haven? You could do anything, Sophia." She set her fork down, her voice quiet. "This place saved me when I was younger. My family struggled, and places like this gave us a lifeline. I want to give that back and build something bigger, a network where no one falls through the cracks." James's eyes softened. "That's why I'm here. Your dream. It's worth fighting for." The moment stretched their shared purpose, pulling them closer. Sophia felt the shift, a connection deeper than their partnership. She didn't trust it entirely, but didn't push it away either. The press event was held outside Hope Haven, and the boarded-up window was a stark reminder of the stakes. Sophia spoke first, her voice carrying over the small crowd of reporters and residents. "Hope Haven isn't just a building," she said. "It's a promise. And with James Carter's support, we're building a network to keep that promise alive." James stepped up, announcing his withdrawal from the South Boston project. "This isn't about profit," he said. "It's about doing what's right. Hope Haven stays, and we're investing in communities, not tearing them down." The crowd cheered, but Sophia's phone buzzed mid-event. An anonymous text, "Laura's not done. Check her ties to Councilman Reed." She showed James, who nodded grimly. "We'll handle it," he whispered. After the event, they met with James's investigator, who confirmed Councilman Reed had received payments from Laura's shell company. It was another piece of the puzzle, but time was running out. Sophia felt the weight of every decision, every risk. Yet as she looked at James, his resolve mirroring hers, she realized their partnership had become something more, a bond forged in sacrifice and shared dreams. As they left the center, Sophia's hand brushed James's, a fleeting touch that felt like a promise. They were closer to stopping Laura, but the fight was far from over, and the anonymous sender's shadow loomed larger than ever. The Boston morning was crisp, the late October air carrying a bite that seeped through the walls of Hope Haven. Sophia Johnson stood in the community center's office, her navy jacket draped over a chair, her desk a battlefield of papers, legal documents, and empty coffee cups. The latest anonymous text, "Laura's not done. Check her ties to Councilman Reed," burned in her mind, a warning that time was running out. The city council's vote on the rezoning of Hope Haven's land was tomorrow, and despite the mounting evidence against Laura Bennett, Sophia knew one wrong move could cost them everything. James Carter arrived just after dawn, his sweater rumpled from late-night strategy sessions, a tablet tucked under his arm. His presence had become a constant in the center, a shift Sophia still grappled with. The press event announcing his withdrawal from the South Boston project had swayed some public opinion, but Laura's influence lingered like a shadow. James said, "My investigator confirmed the payments to Reed," setting the tablet on her desk. 3 transfers from Laura's offshore account timed with key council votes. It's enough to discredit him. Sophia scanned the tablet, her pulse quickening. The numbers were damning: $50,000 wired to a shell company, linked to Councilman Reed buried in layers of bureaucracy. She said this could tip the vote, her voice steady but urgent. But we need to go public today. No delays. James nodded. My lawyers are drafting a statement for the press. We'll tie Laura's accounts to Reed and demand a federal investigation. But we must be careful. Laura's cornered, and she'll hit back hard. Sophia's thoughts flicked to the anonymous sender. The texts, the notes, and the bank statement had been one step ahead of Laura, but their motives were unclear. Whoever's leaking this knows her playbook, she said. I don't trust them, but we can't ignore this. James's jaw tightened. Agreed. My team's still tracing the burner phone. We'll find them. Sophia leaned back, her fingers tapping the desk. We don't have time to wait. Let's call a press conference for noon. We lay it all out. Laura Reed, the offshore accounts. Everything. The press conference was held in a community hall, downtown, a neutral space, packed with reporters, activists, and curious residents. Sophia stood at the podium, her voice clear and commanding, as she outlined Laura's campaign to undermine Hope Haven. She said this isn't just about one center, her eyes scanning the crowd. It's about who controls our communities. Laura Bennett and her allies think they can buy our future. We're here to say they can't. James followed, presenting the evidence, precisely bank statements, emails, and a timeline linking Laura to the rezoning and Reed's votes. Carter Enterprises is cooperating fully with authorities, he said. We're calling for a federal probe into these transactions. Hope Haven stays, and so does the truth. The questions came fast, some skeptical, others accusing. A reporter asked Sophia, "Are you sure Carter's not using you to clean his image?" She met the reporter's gaze, unflinching. "I don't trust anyone," unquestioningly. But James Carter's actions, his funding, his sacrifice, speak louder than rumors. We're fighting for the same thing, a city that puts people first. As they stepped off the stage, the crowd's murmurs followed them. Sophia's phone buzzed with another anonymous text. Good move. Laura's at the council building now. Stop her. Her heart raced. She showed James, who frowned. She's making a final play, he said. We need to get there. The city council building was a hive of activity staff, bustling as the rezoning vote loomed. Sophia and James arrived just as Laura's sleek car pulled up. She stepped out, her red dress, a bold contrast to the gray stone building, her expression calm but strained. Sophia's stomach twisted. She'd seen that look before, the calm of someone with a plan. They followed her inside, blending into the crowd of aides and reporters. Laura was meeting with Councilman Reed in a private office, the door slightly ajar. Sophia pulled out her phone, recording audio as they lingered nearby. Laura's voice was sharp-clipped. She said, "You vote yes on the rezoning, or those photos go public. You know what's at stake." Reed's response was muffled, but his tone was nervous. "You promised this was clean, Laura. If Carter's got proof." "He doesn't," Laura snapped. "Please stick to the plan, and we're both safe." Sophia's grip tightened on her phone. It was blackmail, clear as day. James whispered, "We've got her. Let's get this to the press." They slipped out, forwarding the recording to James's team and a trusted reporter. By evening, the story broke. Councilman Reed implicated in bribery scandal with developer ally. The article included the audio, anonymized but unmistakable. Social media erupted, and the council announced an emergency session to review the rezoning vote. Back at Hope Haven, Sophia and James watched the news unfold, the center's standard room packed with residents cheering as Reed's resignation hit the wires. The lawsuit against Laura gained traction, with federal investigators seizing her financial records. Sophia's relief was tempered by caution. The anonymous sender was still a mystery, and Laura's defiance at the council suggested she wasn't done. Sophia found another note slipped under her office door that night. "You've won this round, but the elite play a long game." She showed James, her voice low. "This isn't over. Laura's got friends we don't know about." James's face darkened. Then we keep fighting. Together. Sophia nodded, their partnership now a lifeline. Laura's empire was crumbling, but her final words to Reed echoed in Sophia's mind. We're both safe. There was more to uncover, and Sophia was ready to face it with James by her side. The first snow of November dusted Boston's streets, blanketing Hope Haven in a quiet calm. Inside, the community center buzzed with anticipation, its walls freshly painted, the boarded window replaced with sparkling glass. Sophia Johnson stood in the standard room, her navy jacket swapped for a festive sweater, her hands busy arranging chairs for the grand opening of Hope Haven's new network of support centers. The rezoning vote had been defeated. Laura Bennett's lawsuit unraveled, and Councilman Reed's resignation had sent shockwaves through the city. But Sophia's focus was here on the people, the mission, the future. James Carter arrived early, his coat dusted with snow, carrying a box of decorations donated by his team. Their partnership had solidified through weeks of battle, from press conferences to late-night strategy sessions. Sophia caught his eye across the room, a smile tugging at her lips. He'd proven himself not just with money, but with sacrifice, transparency, and a shared vision that had begun to feel like something more. The opening ceremony was set for noon, celebrating Hope Haven's survival and the launch of its citywide network. Volunteers bustled, hanging banners and setting up a stage, while residents helped with pride in their eyes. Sophia had spent days preparing her speech, weaving in stories of the people they served, a veteran who'd found work, a mother who'd rebuilt her life. This wasn't just a victory over Laura. It was a promise kept. James joined her at the stage, his presence steadying. "You ready?" he asked, his voice warm. "Born ready," she said, her confidence masking the butterflies in her stomach. "But we're doing this together." The ceremony began under a canopy of string lights, the standard room packed with residents, volunteers, city officials, and reporters. Sophia took the podium first, her voice ringing with conviction. "Hope Haven isn't just a place," she said. "It's a bridge to opportunity, to dignity, to hope. Today we're launching a network to bring that bridge to every corner of Boston, thanks to James Carter's and this community's support." The crowd cheered, and Sophia stepped aside for James. He spoke briefly, his words heartfelt but straightforward. "This isn't my victory," he said. "It's yours." Sophia's the staff's, the residents'. I'm just honored to be part of it." As the applause faded, James paused, his eyes finding Sophia's. "There's one more thing," he said, his voice softening. He stepped closer, pulling a small box from his pocket. The crowd hushed as he knelt, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Sophia Johnson, you've shown me what it means to fight for something real. Will you marry me and build this future together?" Sophia's breath caught her heart pounding. The room seemed to vanish, leaving only James, his sincerity, his flaws, the man who'd stood by her through every battle. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." The crowd erupted, cheers echoing off the walls. Sophia laughed, tears in her eyes, as James slid the ring onto her finger. They embraced the moment, raw and unguarded, a promise of love and shared purpose. As the ceremony continued, a man stood at the back of the room, his face weathered but proud. He approached Sophia during the reception, his voice steady. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Used to work for Laura Bennett years ago. I sent you those notes." Sophia's eyes widened as James stepped closer. "Why?" she asked. "Why help us?" Daniel's gaze was steady. "Laura ruined me when I spoke out against her in Chicago. Lost my job, my savings. I couldn't stay quiet when I heard she was targeting Hope Haven. You gave me a chance to make things right." Sophia's chest tightened. "You took a risk." "Thank you." Daniel nodded, glancing at James. "You're not perfect, Carter. But you're trying. That's more than most." As Daniel walked away, Sophia and James exchanged a look, their hands brushing. The truth had come full circle. Laura's defeat. Daniel's redemption. Their own unlikely bond. The network's launch was a triumph, but Daniel's story and countless others gave it meaning. The ceremony ended with music and laughter, residents sharing stories of hope. Sophia and James stood outside, snow falling softly around them. "We did it," she said, her voice soft but fierce. "Not just saved Hope Haven, but built something bigger." James squeezed her hand. "And we're just getting started." The city stretched before them, a canvas of challenges and possibilities. Laura's shadow might linger, her connections to the elite, a lingering threat, but Sophia and James were ready. Their love and mission were a bridge that would carry them and Boston toward a brighter future.